Assalamu alaikum. Today, inshallah, we are going to continue our lessons in our subject, the global strategic management. Our theme today is about the global human resources management, how the global companies can manage the human resources and the personnel in their organization that works in many different countries all over the world with many subsidiaries and branches and so on. So, as we know, the success of any global strategies relies on the quality of the people who are in charge of its implementation. So, global management requires the deployment and development of this personnel and the people who works for it. So, in this chapter, we will address four kinds of managerial issues that a global strategy imposes on human resources. The first one, as there is a need to adopt a worldwide policy of international movement of personnel, how the personnel or the human resources move internationally from a country to a country, from the headquarters to different countries that have the subsidiaries of the corporation, differentiating in the pool of managers those who will follow a global career from those who will follow a local career, and we will see the difference in the next slides, which is called the assignment issue. The second issue is there is a need to manage the career of the global managers. This is what's called the expatriates management issue. Expatriates, we will see the meaning of expatriates in details for the next slides, but it means the persons or the people who work and live abroad in foreign countries. This is the expatriates. The third issue, there is a need to recruit and motivate the local personnel who works for the organization from the local country, and which is called the localization issue. And finally, there is the need to develop skills fitted with the requirement of global management, which is called the global skill development issue, the training and rule rotation and so on. We'll talk about each one in details in the next slides as we see these four issues in details from this figure. This is our objectives in this chapter, to understand the trade-offs in establishing a policy of reliance on expatriate global managers versus the local ones. Also to understand the sources of success and failure of an expatriate policy, to contribute to the definition of an expatriate policy and to the plans for developing the local management, and finally to participate in the design of the global training programs. Let's begin. We started already with the main issues of the global HR management. As we saw, the global human resources wheel, we will see this in the next slide. Also, the personnel management and the proportion of global and local managers in the corporation. So the company have to balance between the proportion of these two kinds of types of the managers, global and local ones, and also the managing of the expatriates, the people who are working from abroad in foreign countries and live there and their families and so. So this is the career management of global managers, and the localization, which is the need to recruit and motivate the local personnel, and finally the global skill development, the need to develop skills appropriate for global management. So the types of managers in the global firms that we have to know, as the global company can be represented as a wheel, as we will see in the next figure. In this wheel, we have three stages. At the center in the corporate headquarters, where the board of directors and the key executives are located alongside the corporate staff. In many companies, the global business divisions are also located nearby the corporate headquarters, although this is not always the case. The main wheel is constituted by the countries in which the company operates. So countries are staffed with three categories of personnel, as we can see here, the global managers, the local managers, and the temporary assignment. The global managers, as who are their career to is made up of successive appointments in different countries. Managers in this category are considered as expatriates. So they are appointed usually in different countries, in foreign country for a period of time, and then they transfer to another subsidiary in another country for a period of time, and so on. This is what we call the expatriates. Although this terminology is progressively, it's appearing to be replaced by a denomination of international or global manager instead of the word expatriate. The local managers are recruited at subsidiary level. Their career is essentially within the local companies. So a global company headquartered in United States, for example, but they have a branch or subsidiary in Germany, for example. So this local manager who is a German person or is a resident in Germany and appointed as a local manager. So this is what we call the local manager uh, who is recruited at the subsidiary level. And there is also the temporary assignees who are referred as detached personnel who are assigned or appointed for a specific task or a period of time in a temporary basis. So the profile of the human resource wheel, as we saw in this picture, is not the same in the company that has adopted a global strategic posture as in a company that operates in a multi-domestic mode. So next figure, we will see the difference between these two models. That multi-domestic organization global managers are relatively few and mostly from a dominant nationality. The global organization will see a larger number of multicultural global managers moving around. As you can see here in the multi-domestic design, a few more global managers from subsidiary to subsidiary. Local personnel have careers in their own countries, some temporary detachments, like, for example, companies like Colgate, Palmolive, and so on. The other model, the global design, we can see many more global managers as the local personnel have many detachment opportunities and can join the global manager group. For example, the French company Shell for petroleum productions. So to finalize this topic about the human resources wheel, we can see the differences, the main differences between these two models. The multi-domestic model, we can see the number of global managers is small or few. At the global design model, the number of global managers are very large. In the multi-domestic design, the proportion of local personnel is high, and in the global design model, it is very low. Also, the proportion of temporary detachments in multi-domestic design, it is relatively less, but it is more in the global design model. And finally, can the local personnel join the global manager group or not? In the multi-domestic design, it is not allowed, but in the global design model, it is okay. So let's now move to the expatriate management, which is the large proportion in our topic, how the company manage their expatriates in different countries and so on. So let's define expatriate personnel at the beginning. Expatriates are the people who are living and working in a non-native country, as we said at the beginning. But they are often grouped into two categories. There is the parent country nationals, parent country nationals or PCN, whose national origin is the same as that of the corporate headquarters. Yani if the corporate headquarters in France, for example, so this parent country nationals or this expatriate is French person, and so we can see this in countries or corporations like from the United States or European Union and so on. In contrast, we have the third country nationals in Japan and South Korea, for example. So an increased number of third country nationals over the parent country nationals indicates that the firms are moving from a traditional international management mode towards a global one. So expatriates have some challenges that they face and confront when they start work abroad, and so we can divide these challenges into four categories, like the job related, like inability of manager to adapt in this foreign country, or the inability of the manager's partner or the manager's family to adapt in this new country. Also the local insertion, like the preparation, the culture shock, the political skills, the social skills, the local acculturation. Culturation here means the process by which group members from one culture adapt to the culture of the other group. So this is some problems or challenges that the expatriate may face in the foreign countries. Also the adaptation and education problem, the schools and university for his kids and so on, and the career, the selection, the rotation, the re-entry, and so on. How it is be selected, appointed, the rotation will be rotated between many tasks, or as we will see in the skills development, you don't have to stay at the same job doing the same task all the time. You have to move to another one, and another person come to your place. So this developed your skills and build more capacity. And the re-entry, when he finish his time in the corporation in this foreign country and so on, he will come back to his quarters. Does he will find his place, or how can the corporate manage this thing? So some reasons for the failure of expatriates. Some expatriates, when move and work in foreign country with foreign language and culture and so on, they fail. They cannot adapt. So measured by the recall rate, the proportion of assigned personnel who fail to complete their predetermined contracts. The main causes for this: the inability of manager to adapt, the inability of his partner or his family to adapt, the family related problems, the manager's personality himself or emotional immaturity, the manager's inability to cope with responsibility, the manager's lack of technical competence, or the lack of motivation. There is also some reasons for success, like the recognition of cross-borders assignments by the corporate headquarters, or the corporate support and understanding given to the expatriate personnel. So we have four attitudes for the different types of expatriates. As we know, all the persons have different personalities and attitudes and so on. Some expatriates we can see here the four attitudes, like flight, fight, follow, fit, which is called the four F's. The first one, flight, refers to the expatriates that preserve own cultural identities, isolate themselves, and avoid socializing with local community. There's who fight, that's like the expatriates that criticize the host countries, claim superiority of their own cultures, and avoid socializing with locals. There's also the expatriates who follow. They are willing to embrace local culture and assimilate gradually, lose connection with global headquarters. And finally, there is some expatriates who fit, which means like the cosmopolitans, people who can immerse themselves into the local culture and simultaneously preserve their own cultures. We can see this figure summarize these four attitudes. So the relation between the expatriate and the company in the headquarters and so. For the company, the cost of the expatriate personnel kicks in at around 2 or 3 times. So it's more costly for the company at the equivalent position in the home country. So it is therefore necessary that global firms put in place a coherent set of policies and practices that optimizes the benefits of expatriation to both the company and the individuals. Such policy has 6 major components, like the strategic vision, the selection and the preparation, the compensation, the tenure, the support, and the career follow-up. We will see each one in details. For example, the strategic vision as it places the expatriate assignments within the framework of the company's global strategy. The assignment policies vary according to the global positioning and management style of the company. We have three modes of transfer policies. First one, the fill position. The fill position means the classic policy of expatriation for key managers and technical support transfer. We have also the develop manager as a policy designed to utilize international postings as an instrument of developing management talents and skill development. And finally, the develop organization, a policy that embraces the transnational management philosophy by which people move around in order to develop products and lead marketing campaign with the view of developing the global strategic capabilities of the company. The second is the selection and preparation. So here the components of, we are talking about the components of the policies, the sorry. Mhm. The second component is the selection of the expatriates. Expatriates is which is a function of individual skills as well as the technical and competitive requirements of the company. First, the choice of the expatriates, identifying people with tolerance for ambiguity, behavioral flexibility, goal orientation, sociability, and interest in other people, empathy, ability to be non-judgmental, meta communication skills, and so on. So this is how company should choose the expatriates and global managers who work in foreign countries and so on. Also, the preparation of the expatriates, clearly communicated career plan to avoid the re-entry problems at the cultural and logistical preparation for the employee and his family, the assignment trips, assessment centers to provide tailored training after comparing current with required skills. So we have some choice of the expatriates, how it's done. We talk about the tolerance of ambiguity, which means the ability to function effectively in a foreign environment where expatriates experience ambiguity, complexity, and uncertainty. Nothing is clear for them in this new country or new culture. Also, the behavioral flexibility. You have to be flexible. The capacity to vary one's behaviors according to the immediate requirements of the situation and the demands of the foreign culture. Also, the goal orientation, which is the ability and desire to achieve one's task goals despite the barriers, opposition, and the discouragement. The sociability and interest in other people. The willingness of this expatriate to establish and maintain meaningful social relationships combined with the genuine interest in people. Five, the empathy as the capacity to accurately sense other people's thoughts, feelings, and motives and to respond to them appropriately. Six, the non-judgmentalist, the willingness to critically examine one's own values and beliefs and avoid judging other people by one's own norms. And finally, the meta communication skills, which is mean that the expatriates should have the capacity to clarify culturally different perceptions and to guide the intercultural communication process. The third policy is the compensation. Compensation, we see the classic expatriate contracts involve a series of clauses that, in addition to the normal remuneration attached to the job, these contracts are designed to compensate for the difference in living conditions, the prices, the obligation for the person and his family to change accommodation, pension systems, health insurance, schooling, cost of living, as well as any additional economic impacts of the assignments on the family. So generally, a hardship allowance is also granted in the case of countries that have a significant deficit in security, infrastructure, or social political content. This is an extra thing. So, for example, an expatriate in Shanghai, in China, whose salary is based on Frankfurt living standards, could expect to have the living standard component of their salary adjusted by plus 13% if the rent is paid by the company, and also in most cases housing and children's education is paid by the company. The tenure or the duration or the period of the contract or the task as the company policy or function of time need to learn business rules and build effective business relationships depending on the contextual hardship of the country. So the optimal tenure length is determined by the combined effect of the expatriate's local impact on business result, which increases over time, and also the benefits of global integration, which decreases over time. Five, policy the support. The overwhelming empirical evidence coming from the studies on expatriation shows that success is very closely correlated with the support and understanding coming from the mother company from which the person is detached. So support can take numerous forms, but is it the psychological contact, feeling that one is not forgotten, and the company doesn't send him to a foreign country and forget him, or is not marginalized? That matters. These psychological things that matters the most. So finally, the career follow-up. When the this expatriate ends his period in this country. So traditionally, the career follow-up issue has been known as the repatriation problem. It's called the repatriation problem. As at the end of the assignment or the contract or the task, the expatriate is concerned about finding a job at the mother company corresponding to his or her skills and performances. So the repatriation problem assumed that the person was going to return to the home country. So this is the case for temporarily assigned personnel, but it's less and less true in the global management context described in the global design, where the international managers move from position to position in the worldwide corporate network. So further, returning home or going elsewhere. However, this requires from the company a proactive international career management process. So now let's move to the localization, which is, you know about localization and how to adapt the company, the global company, adapt to the local market and so on. So why in this, when we talk about the human resources, why localization is important? At the human resources context, localization can build and maintain personal and business contacts without the potential problems caused by the language barriers. Also, the local staff better qualified for business development, which requires local sensitivity and local knowledge. Also, localization reduces the expensive expatriate costs. So, when we talk about localization in this context, we are meaning depending or appointing local personnel from the subsidiary country. Also, it allows a company to reap the benefits of implementing a think globally, act locally policy. And also it shows the commitment to the country, which can be of concern to the local government and the people. So localization is therefore an important way of developing the beneficial goodwill for the future expansion of the global company. But also there is some concerns towards localization. The main managerial issues in localization are in recruitment, retention, and career management, and also the performance evaluation, reward practices, and cultural differences. If we can see here the recruitment, for example, this scarcity of local talent favors local instead of international firms. When we talk about retention, maybe you have some concerns also like the loyalty of local staff may be hard to secure, and companies can encourage loyalty through good career prospects and fair treatment instead of financial compensation. Also, the career management, as the local staff need career management and equal opportunity to become global managers. So, with an absence of a glass ceiling for local staff. Also, the performance evaluation, cultural differences, the dilemma of implementing a standardized approach while taking cultural differences into account. Finally, we have the reward practices and the awareness of importance of rewards on private lives and social standing. The last topic in this theme is the global skill development, how the company, the global company, develop the skills of their managers in the worldwide. context. So there's three main rules of global managers. For example, the business managers operate in the global business units. This is the upper stage, as they have the ability to coordinate the activities and link the capabilities in between the different subsidiaries and the headquarter and so on. And the rule is to increase the global scale, efficiency, and competitiveness. Also, the second stage, we have the country managers, the managers who are in the different countries and subsidiaries and so on, who operate in local subsidiaries. They have the skills of entrepreneurship, capacity to build local resources and collect competitive intelligence. And the rule is to meet the local customer needs, defend the market position, and satisfy the local government's requirements. Finally, we have the functional managers who operate at the corporate or the regional headquarters, as they have the informational networks, and the role is to organize and coordinate the worldwide learning and transfer technologies and best practices. So we have some skills that global companies have to pay attention for developing them. For individuals, for example, let's talk about the professional skills, like the strong mastery of business knowledge in the relevant fields, like in marketing, technology, finance, operations, anything, any professional skills, which is usually it's maybe in local companies or global companies, no problem. But in the global companies, we have different skills that the global corporation have to pay attention to, like the cultural skill, as the ability to respect and deal with cultural differences and avoid stereotyping. The negotiation skills, sure, it will be different in the global context. The ability to balance conflicting objectives with internal and external parties. The relational skills, the ability to relate easily with other people and show empathy. And the leadership skills, the ability to set objectives, organize, and motivate subordinates. The intellectual skills, like the ability to balance global objectives with the local realities. Also, the courage and determination. And finally, the flexibility in moving from one rule to another. So, the global skill development, known also as the global leaders development. They mix between the career management and the formal training, career management and formal training, by facilitating skills acquisition as well as coaching in various global roles that managers are likely to play during their career. So we have two types: the job rotation, which reflects the career management, all the skills acquisition as they change their positions every in different times and periods and so on. So every personnel shouldn't stay at the same position for a long time. We have to rotation between them so they can develop their skills more and recognize more information and more skills and so on. Also, the ongoing training or the continuous learning and having different updated training courses and so on. This is a two ways for the skills development in the global context. So in management seminars at various levels, global firms make sure that a mix of country managers, global managers, and functional managers of various nationalities participate, favoring the expansion of a network culture. As we can see in the next figure, showed how a global oil company has orchestrated the development of its international managers. You can see this case study in the textbook in details, but it is summarized here in this chart. Like for the technical professional at the lower stage, the first stage within the operating company, there is a training and testing inter-functional moves, building expertise. Also for the professional manager, the second stage, exchange within a region, the broadening for professionals, management, testing, management, development, and so on. And for the general manager, the top of the hierarchy, the third stage, the inter-regional central, at the international cross-posting, management, development, professional, and general. And finally, the central one, the general group management. So now we reach at the end of this chapter. So you can, as we said, go back to the textbook to read this case study in details and apply what we studied in our chapters in this chapter about this case study. And then we have some learning assignments that you can read and try to solve them and apply them to our the information that we explained in our chapter. And finally, this is the keywords and the key terms that you have to look up and find from either from the this presentation, these slides, or the textbook, or maybe in more details from the internet or any other resources. So try to study these and understand them very well. And see you next time, inshallah, in our last topic about the global financial management in the global strategic management course. Goodbye and good luck.